let's go ahead and get this guy out of the way before we get to his much more superior wave mate here. Here is Generations Tankor. Now, in the comic that he comes with, and he does come with a comic, part of the Dark Cybertron bit with a custom cover, he did have a bit cameo right here. He's kind of, on this one page, he's in the background, up here, and he does wander over to be like, oh no, you're a bad Starscream, and then he has a little bit of a, everything is bad because you're bad, Starscream, you're screwing everything up, and then he goes away. And that is Tankor's contribution to the IDW Transformers mythos. He has shown up in Windblade as Fat Tankor. And Fat Tankor is fun, I guess. But like, he kind of feels like shoehorned in, just so they could give us this kind of cruddy figure. And it's nice to see them homaging eras other than G1. You know, we've gotten some nice Beast Wars now, Beast Machine's character, and he clearly is, based off of his Beast Machine's form. This is Tankor from Beast Machines. Admittedly, he's from IDW. He comes in, the standard packaging. There's his bio cards on the back, the standard art and all that stuff. I'm not really the packaging, standard packaging. I just feel like they could have done much better because this tank mode is not real inspired. I guess it's kind of tankish, but I just feel like if you want a good Tankor figure and you're not worried about the size, go get the old Tank Deluxe from Beast Machine, or the drone from Beast Machines, because it was an awesome little Tankor. The Voyager was different, the Voyager was a very different figure from what we got on the TV screen, but the little one was actually a pretty decent representation of the tank drone we got on the basic design we saw on the show. This is just a weird. It's not an impressive tank, especially with his head just kind of high. It's not even like his head can really see over it. I'm not. It's not like the transformation's semi-involved, and it's an okay vehicle mode, but I'm just not impressed by it. Transformation again is very easy. You pop these out, unpeg the head. The head, you can see there's a couple peg holes here. It pegs on right here. We'll show that in a minute. Fold the arms out. Bring the whole chest up, fold this down, and these pegs on these arm panels will peg into the back of the torso as well as the back of this peg on the slot in the back of the neck pegs in up here. So you want to kind of slide that in, so that plugs in, and then you make sure that these pegs here peg into the torso itself. And that locks the shoulders, or at least the inner shoulder there in place, and then the arms themselves can come down. And there's a shoulder joint, universal shoulder joint. These arm pads are on hinge joints, so you can kind of bring them out and down from where they go in tank mode. He's got a bicep swivel, good elbows, and then a swivel here at the forearm, so you can have his hands like this or like that, however you want to use his hands. The cannon actually comes as a separate piece in the packaging, and you just got to clip it on right there. That's all you do. And the cannon comes back and down and kind of sits there on his shoulder just like that. The legs, you flip these panels up and fold the treads forward. And there's his robot mode. And it's squat and armored, much like he was on Beast Machines. It's nice. He does have some nice little, like, an homage to the bigger figure. He's got the saw blades here in his arm, and his claws do open and close. So it's not the worst homage, but I feel like that's with his legs straight. If you want to give it, you can give him the kind of digitigrade angled legs from the show, kind of, but that makes him much squatter and much shorter, and it doesn't really work. I just feel like even though he's supposed to be kind of a squat armored character, I feel like they almost made him too squat, even with the legs fully extended. Fold those up. He's just not. His proportions are just generally off, and like I said, I know he was an oddly proportioned bot in the show anyway, but it's just. I feel like his head, maybe if his head were not quite as big in relation to his body. I don't know. I can't put my finger on exactly what is bothering me about it, but I'm not really a fan. It's not horrible, but it's not. I don't think it's a rush out to buy type of figure. It does have a kind of a friction fire missile. You can see it's a little longer than it needs to be to clear the barrel, and I'm sure that's a safety issue thing. But you pull back on the dark gray part and push the light gray part in, and it has the friction ball that it fires with. And And I imagine that if it were, that extra length is probably just due to safety regulations. I can see it being too short. But I would have liked it, I think, a little better if the missile actually, if this actually sat back against this to make it look more like a cohesive cannon versus this tiny little swizzle stick stuck in it. It looks like he's got a giant red Q-tip stuck in his cannon. You can, of course, leave the missile out and make it look more kind of like his energy cannon. But when you do that, it almost, like the way the pivot point works, it almost sits too far back on his shoulder. Like I feel like if you could make it so it sat about right there, that would be about right. It pivoted right there. But because of the transformation gimmick, it sits too far back here. Although it does allow you to kind of fold it up on his shoulder like that. And that's kind of nice. So like I said, it's not a horrible package all put together, but I'm just not a real big fan of... There's just something off about it in both modes that, like I said, I wouldn't go busting down any doors to get him. Rat Trap, I definitely, if you hear somebody in town has found that wave at your local store, by all means, run out and get Rat Trap. Tankor, if you find him there and you really just want him, sure, go ahead and pick him up. But like I said, I wouldn't go to any great lengths to nab him if you can avoid it. He does have the Viacom symbol on him, which is nice. And to go back to tank, it's actually more of the same. You just kind of fold these down. Make sure you fold these flaps down over the treads, and then pull the torso out. Flip this part up, and the arms just fold up. You'll notice, like on one arm here, instead of having the detail here, this is actually a little divot on this arm, and this is actually a raised bit on this arm. It's subtle, but it's there, and that kind of helps you make sure you've got everything lined up right. The saw blades go on top. You'll notice they're only on one side of the arm. And you just fold them in together like that, and they should plug together, just like that. And then you want to take these, you want to make sure these come back and down a little bit on this pivot point, just because if you raise them up, these pegs won't reach, these peg holes won't reach these pegs right here. So fold this down and peg that on right there, and then these pegs on the side of the leg peg into the side of the cod piece here. So you just plug those in, and then flip the cannon up, and there you have Fat Tankor back in his tank mode. So yeah, like I said, it's not the worst figure to come out of the line, and it does have. It's not a simple transformation. It's not just a stand up and boom. There's some neat steps to it, but there's just something that feels flat in both modes to me, and I don't know what it is. Like in the tank mode, it's because he looks like a flat tank. He doesn't look. He's not an intimidating tank, I don't feel, in vehicle mode. And as robot mode, there's just something not quite right that I just can't put my finger on. So, like I said, if you find him on sale, probably worth it. I would, but I mean, like I said, don't pay extra. Don't rush out and and pay more than you really have to get him, because he's okay. But yeah, there is Generations Deluxe Tankor. And real quick, hold on, I meant to do that. Let me go ahead and turn him back to robot mode. Hey, bonus, 3 transformations in one video. Now we'll go ahead and pop that off. Yeah, thankfully he's quick enough that I don't mind doing this. Bring it back to robot mode. Because I meant to do in robot mode, just to show you how kind of short and stocky he is. Here he is with Starscream, Armada Starscream from the line. So you can see he's even with his legs not compressed into the angled tank mode like he had on the show, he's still a very short deluxe. And here he is with his other. We've gotten 2 Rhinox toys technically in Generations so far. There he is with a Voyager Rhinox, just to give you an idea of how big he is. So yeah, sorry, I meant to do that when I had the first robot mode, but whatever. He's quick enough, and there you go. So there it is, Generations Tankor. Like I said, mildly recommended if you like the character or you want to kind of troop build and army drones. But like I said, I wouldn't go out of your way to hunt him down by himself.